Welcome back, focused learners. Today, we are strapping in for a massive, thorough masterclass explainer on the intricate magic and tactical combat systems of the Dreamweaver universe. Now, if you've been following the journey of the Dream Knights, you already know that battles in this world, well, they aren't just won with bigger swords or louder explosions. Honestly, that would be too easy. They are won with intense intellect, deep self-awareness, and an absolute, literal mastery over one's environment. Today, we are going to closely examine the intense training sequence of Concordia Pendragon, Kenyah. We're going to look at how she is guided by her legendary parents, Victoria and Boniface, to unpack the exact mechanics of how power actually scales in this universe. So, grab a notepad and prepare yourselves because we are going deep into the tactical weeds today.
Okay, let's dive straight into this. Here is our roadmap for the explainer. We'll start with the anatomy of a sigil, move into extrasensory perception, break down the rules of zone control, and finally, look at advanced combat tactics.
Section 1. Anatomy of a sigil. The core of a Dream Knight.
Okay, so it is literally impossible to understand a Dream Knight's combat capability without first grasping one fundamental truth. What they hold in their hands is a direct reflection of what they hold in their minds. A sigil is absolutely not just some static weapon you go and pick off a rack in an armory. No, it is a highly unique, living manifestation wielded by a Dream Knight. It is actively shaped to overcome specific challenges. And the coolest part is that it evolves in real time alongside the wielder's inner character. When Concordia is standing out there in her training field with her parents, her father, Boniface, lays it out perfectly. He explains that overcoming vulnerabilities is the fundamental reason a sigil evolves in the first place. You can basically think of it as an outward physical projection of a knight's internal growth.
Now, there is a very precise formula that determines a sigil's form and functionality, and it breaks down into 3 steps. Step 1 is identity. This is your fundamental self-knowledge, who you are at your core. Step 2 is elemental affinity. Now, this one is crucial because your assigned element literally dictates your underlying temperament, your natural strengths, and, maybe most importantly, your inherent limitations. And finally, step 3 is the ideal, which serves as your overarching combat philosophy. To put it simply, your element shapes your temperament, which then clarifies your identity, which ultimately forges the ideal your sigil represents. The main takeaway here, you can't change your weapon without first changing yourself.
Let's look at how this plays out for Concordia, because there is a striking contrast in her unique genetic and tactical inheritance. Her mother, Victoria, hails from the Pendragon house. They utilize the wind element and hone what is called a precision ideal. Think pure instinct paired perfectly with high intellect, manifesting as a crossbow. Then you have her father, Boniface, representing the house of the hound. They are grounded in earth with a brute force ideal, which for him manifests as twin tomahawks. But here's the catch. Brute force carries a massive physical toll, specifically an adverse effect on a fighter's center of gravity. You're throwing a lot of weight around. So Concordia's sigil, the Kraken Andromeda, is this incredible, somewhat chaotic, dualistic fusion of both of her parents. The Andromeda mode gives her that Pendragon precision, while the Kraken mode offers devastating hound-like force. But because of this, she has to consciously, constantly balance the two to avoid being knocked completely off her own center of gravity during a fight.
But here's where Concordia's genius really shines. Because she is so incredibly self-aware of these inherited limitations, she doesn't just accept them, she begins forging entirely new ideals. First, she develops a magnitude ideal, which brilliantly fuses precision and brute force together. We actually see this happen when she transforms her sigil into an aerial volley, essentially sacrificing the pinpoint single-target accuracy of traditional archery for the overwhelming suppressive weight of brute force. And she doesn't stop there either. She also develops a versatility ideal. This grants her the insane ability to actively alter the material composition and physical structure of her weapon mid-fight. She isn't just accepting what she inherited from her parents. She is actively conceptualizing and building her own combat identity from the ground up.
Section 2. Extrasensory perception. Expanding the senses.
Now that we deeply understand the weapon itself, let's shift gears to the meso-level of combat, perception. In the Dreamweaver universe, knights don't just fight with their standard eyes and ears. The sheer, staggering variety of extrasensory perception, or ESP, is phenomenal. And fun fact, depending on their specific element, a knight is literally rewriting how their brain processes reality. Let's walk through this. Fire grants intuition, which is usually awakened in intense life-or-death situations. Wind and lightning grant zone perception, offering this immense, radar-like aerial view of the battlefield. Earth provides magnetic perception, letting a knight sense the physical world through the forces of attraction and repulsion. Time grants foresight, the ability to read cause and effect before it happens. and light grants profound awareness or wisdom. But here's the trick. To activate any of these, a knight absolutely must sync to the specific elemental wavelengths operating within their current environment.
But of course, the system is not perfect. As Concordia quickly discovers, when she uses her wind affinity to gain that immense aerial view, there are massive blank spots in her vision. Her mother Victoria brilliantly compares this to a telescope, and I love this analogy. Using ESP is like finding a powerful telescope that is already present in nature, but if an obstacle, say a massive tree, is blocking that telescope's line of sight, the tool becomes completely useless. In combat, these blind spots occur where the environmental wavelength differs from the one the knight is currently synced to. So what is Concordia's genius solution? She actually coats her own arrows in her synced wavelength and fires them directly into the hazy blind spots. The arrows diffuse the conflicting air, effectively clearing the haze and completely restoring her godlike, uninterrupted view of the battlefield.
This naturally brings us to a deep psychological requirement of combat: depth perception, which is specifically tied to the water element. Now, this isn't just about seeing further away, it is about seeing deeper. Depth perception is defined as the ability to find the new within the old. Think about it. When we see the exact same information repeatedly, human nature defaults to boredom, right? We just tune it out. This creates a massive mental barrier. But if you can replace that boredom with genuine fascination, the information unravels itself to reveal manifold depths of hidden truths. You literally have to overcome your own apathy to unlock the immense power that is sitting right there, hidden in plain sight.
To teach this concept, her father Boniface sets up a brilliant Socratic challenge. He looks at her and drops this profound quote: "The common isn't always what you think it is." He then takes a precious box, drops it at the bottom of a massive, incredibly deep lake, and tells Concordia she must retrieve it. The catch? She cannot dive into the water, and she cannot use her sigil. For days, she is completely stuck. She views the lake as this impassable physical obstacle, and she's just raging at the sheer unreasonableness of the task.
The incredible breakthrough finally happens when she stops and watches a fish struggling on land. Boniface tells her to think like a fish. Now, to a fish, the water isn't a barrier at all, is it? It's their atmosphere. It is their air. Suddenly, Concordia shifts her entire perspective. Water is just a composition of hydrogen and oxygen gases. The air is the water. By syncing her elemental wavelength not to a liquid state, but to the gases suspended within the water, her mind instantly maps the entire expansive volume of the lake, allowing her to easily locate the box. By seeing the new within the old, she fully masters depth perception. It's a total paradigm shift.
Section 3. The rules of zone control. Manipulating the battlefield.
All right, so with the micro and meso levels mastered, we now look to the macro level. In high-level Dreamweaver combat, you aren't just fighting the enemy's physical body, you are actually fighting over the environment itself. To understand zone control, you really have to look at an ecosystem as if it were a living, breathing body. Every ecosystem has a healthy state. Just like your physical body relies on a healthy immune system and respected biological boundaries to flourish and survive, an ecosystem relies on interaction and the strict respect of physical and elemental boundaries. Zone control is the art of manipulating that very state. It is about actively altering the collective mood, what they refer to in-universe as the atmosphere of a territory. So, the ongoing conflict between the enemy forces, the Weaver of Calamity, and the Dream Knights is ultimately a clash of two fundamentally different types of zone control. The Weaver utilizes offensive zone control. They act almost exactly like a stealthy pathogen. Their primary goal isn't necessarily brute force. Rather, it's to silently cross boundaries, quietly take out the sentries, and infect the ecosystem, disrupting the atmosphere to suit their dark purposes. The Dream Knights, on the other hand, act as the native white blood cells. They rely heavily on defensive zone control. They constantly use their extrasensory perception to scan the healthy state of the ecosystem, relentlessly looking for tiny anomalies or infections. It is a massive, high-stakes, magical game of cat and mouse on a territorial scale.
When these opposing forces finally clash, manipulating the zone is vital for victory. These tactics generally fall under support class techniques, specifically field enhancement and field capture. Let's look at field enhancement first. This boosts your allies by introducing highly compatible elements directly into the terrain. For example, if you have a fire affinity ally on your squad, flooding the zone with wind will massively amplify their destructive capability. You are quite literally rewriting the rules of the terrain to buff your team's natural stats.
Now on the flip side, the crucial point is how you deal with the enemy's territory. You accomplish this using field capture through the deployment of nullifiers. It's exactly what it sounds like.
If the enemy relies heavily on fire, you drown the zone in water. If they use darkness, you absolutely blind them with light. These antithetical elements act as violent repellents. The enemy's abilities are immediately suppressed, their mobility is completely restricted because they simply cannot navigate the hostile terrain, and their range of influence is entirely stripped away. The lesson here is that you don't always have to overpower the enemy directly. Sometimes you just have to make the literal ground beneath their feet utterly uninhabitable.
Section 4. Advanced Combat Tactics. Putting Theory into Practice.
Okay, we've covered the weapons, the senses, and the environment. Now let's see what happens when a prodigy takes all this complex theory and explosively applies it in high-speed dynamic combat simulations. But first, we must quickly understand the concept of balance. Everything in zone control revolves around maintaining your own balance while actively destroying the enemy's. Victoria recounts this legendary historical battle where a knight named San performed an ultimate guard break against the Weaver of Calamity. San purposely inhaled deadly poison within the Weaver's zone, taking massive amounts of damage to trigger a special condition called revolution. By willingly sacrificing his own balance and health, he forced a state of mutually assured destruction that actually stripped away the enemy's immortality. It perfectly proves that sometimes, to break a truly impenetrable defense, you have to let the enemy hurt you just to pull them out of their comfort zone.
Concordia takes all these multi-layered tactics and applies them brilliantly against a simulated enemy horde known as the Omnicron. I want you to follow this exact sequence of events because it's wild. First, she summons her aerial volley, raining down massive arrows to completely shatter the enemy's charging formation with sheer brute force. Second, she instantly disintegrates those exact same arrows into dust and whips up an aerial maelstrom, shredding the enemy with microscopic high-speed shrapnel. Finally, she utilizes the intense friction generated from that swirling dust storm to ignite a massive lightning stun field, completely paralyzing the entire horde. It's just a breathtaking tactical sequence. Brute force, seamlessly into wind manipulation, seamlessly into friction-induced lightning.
But as amazing as that is, Concordia's ultimate test actually comes against her own mother. Victoria takes to the sky, unleashes her true active form, and poses a terrifying question that I want you all to think about for a second. How do you survive a solar death ray? Victoria unleashes the Bow of Orion Solaris formation. She literally generates massive, invisible, converging lenses high up in the atmosphere. These lenses catch the sun's rays and amplify them into pinpoint, devastating laser beams that instantly blast through solid rock. The heat is absolutely unbearable. The battlefield is actively turning to ash all around them. Concordia is totally trapped, and any normal physical defense or shield would simply heat up and turn into an oven, literally cooking her alive. And this right here brilliantly illustrates how personal identity and intellect merge in combat. Victoria gives her one single clue. Remember the mythological origins of her sigil's name, Kraken Andromeda. Concordia remembers the legend of Perseus. To save Andromeda from the Kraken, Perseus had to face Medusa, a gorgon whose mere gaze turned men to stone. Concordia realizes in a flash that the solar rays are the gorgon's gaze. To counter it, she instantly crafts an array of diverging lenses in the air above her to violently scatter the focused light and heat. Underneath that, she generates the mirror array of Perseus' shield, safely reflecting all the dispersed, weakened energy back up. She literally defeats an apocalyptic magic attack with real-world optics and Greek mythology. It is so cool.
From understanding your absolute deepest psychological identity, to bending the very air to see the unseen, to turning the battlefield itself into a weapon, the combat of Dreamweaver isn't just magic. It is a masterclass in tactical intellect. It all circles perfectly back to that lesson at the lake. Concordia didn't just learn how to fight, she learned how to truly see. Which leaves me with a question for all of you focused learners out there. What limits in your own life could you shatter right now if you simply started looking for the new within the old? Keep learning, keep analyzing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.